The month of April and May are traditionally considered the month of marriage, and one commodity which involved in rituals across the caste, creed, religion in India is gold. The very commodity found huge demand across the world and its prices soared like anything. It reached 75,000, literally 75,000 Indian rupees per 10 grams. Today, let's examine what are the factors behind such rise in cost. Is it just domestic consumption or global scenario or mix of it? So, to know that, to know the reasons, first we need to find where all gold is utilized and what all utility we could find about the gold. Broadly, if you can see the utility of gold, it would be first for domestic consumption. Domestic consumption would be either the ornamental demand or the marriage ritual or any offerings of religion. The second important one is industrial use. After industrial, third one, but the largest consumption of gold is for reserves. Yes, gold contributes largest possible component of forex reserves for good chunk of countries. So, as it's a commodity like any other metal and most precious one, it would find utility in these three, and any change of demand finds its fluctuation in the cost. So let's examine one after the other how these factors impacted gold recently and what was the scenario half a decade ago and how it contributed to rise in prices. So if we look at the official reserves and global uncertainty as one of the factor, in half a decade, that means from 2019 to the present scenario of 2024, countries have piled of gold as forex reserve. If you look at the reasons behind it, the first global uncertainty was pandemic. We experienced COVID-19 across various countries, and every country, owing to the impact on globalization and trade, piled up gold as reserves. Before understanding what impact it has created, why would any country accumulate gold as forex reserve? Though the precious metals of platinum or any other metals, even precious than gold, exist, gold has been treated as a standard exchange of currency from the days of yore, from the medieval era, along with other metals like silver. But still, gold, due to its non-corrosive property, has been the first possible choice to have it as reserve. So, the gold reserves, when piled up, has increased its demand manifold, and the commodity super cycle has increased its price from around 40K per 10 grams of Indian currency to around 58K within no time of an year. This is the first stage of the commodity super cycle it found. And correspondingly, the second reason was its consumption as asset class. When I say asset class, I would remind you again, it's not just ornamental, but the investment prospect. Gold is also an investment element in many countries, and so is in India. So, this asset class has created a pent-up demand from 58K, which was hovering in 2021, to cross 62K, though it has subdued its demand for a while. Again, tracing back to the third reason of domestic consumption, it was necessary for the ritual prospect which can't be avoided. It formed a floating price below which it can't go. Later on, as everything was settling down and the dust was settling down, now the another global event has come. The second global event was nothing but the war of Russia and Ukraine. And it has again created fertile grounds for another flight and another rise in gold prices. This time it reached 67K by 2023 February. Again, with this demand, the reserve currencies were piled up in the second shift by many other countries as supply chains were disrupted throughout the globe. Then came the scenario of again asset class to pile up again, but this time governments across the world were clever enough. We would discuss in next few minutes, but before that, the third thing that soared due to the supply chain disruption was due to the industrial usage. Remind you again, the third usage is industrial usage. The industrial usage has taken it to cross beyond 70,000. So a doubt might be popping up in your mind. What all uses does coal have in industry? One famous use that we're all looking at is the semiconductor industry, which is largest consumer of raw material gold. So if we carefully look at the semiconductor industry, we would find cores which are responsible for processing. So these cores were in huge demand even during the pandemic era and the subsequent era of war of Russia-Ukraine. Of course, with the Israel-Palestine war, it even aggravated, but these cores, when not being manufactured, from this boats to mobile phones to whatever you call, you count any semiconductor device, the cores made of gold has increased the cost of overall component, and the demand for cores made of gold were not subduing. And another place of industrial use was due to its conductivity of heat and electricity. Other than the semiconductor industry, the gold was used for many other applications. So for this reason, the second flight has begun, and the second flight has taken it to cross this 70K. And now it's hovering somewhere around 75K. And again, this 75K, though hovering around, is not an investment advice in the video. As a disclaimer, please consider it as just for educational use and not as an investment advice. Okay, now as we understood the reasons for why gold was soaring, was government silent enough to not control its prices? Was any other elements not attempting to stabilize or pull it down? If we get into that scenario, what measures were taken so far? Not just in recent past, but maybe a couple of decades ago as well. Governments were determined because countries like India were importing huge quantities of gold, and their import will and the forex reserves were eroding. For that, the first arena where governments targeted was asset class. Because if we can find an alternative asset class which could generate similar returns, the most people who are investing in gold as an asset class were ready to take the returns in another form. So, government chose schemes like gold monetization. Along with gold monetization, where you can deposit your gold and get some percentage of interest, they were also choosing to opt for sovereign gold bonds. So, with these two steps, the governments were attempting to reduce importing of physical gold so that they could ensure their forex reserves are safe. Along with this, other statutory organizations like RBI and SEBI were attempting to bring novel products. Of course, they were derivatives of existing class of investment. Like, first one was ETF. You can let a comment if you are willing to uh, learn about ETF. We would make a video on ETF as well. The gold ETF was also helpful in reducing the demand for gold in physical form, as it was generating similar returns. And recently, another innovative element which depositories, regulatory bodies like SEBI and government together was aiming at was sovereign gold receipts. Again, to understand about sovereign gold receipts, you'll be getting a receipt of the grams, receipt in denomination of grams that you purchase, and this receipt could be used for multiple purposes to redeem. So, what would sovereign gold bonds find utility and why are they attractive? If you understand, these receipts have multiple purpose. Unlike the sovereign gold bonds, they are resembling very much close to the physical gold that you hold. First thing, there is no theft of gold as they are deposited in the depositories, and these receipts, unlike the gold bonds which can't be exchanged to the physical gold, these sovereign gold bonds are utilized to procure physical gold. So, hopeful that when sovereign gold receipts would kickstart in full-fledged manner, even the demand for physical gold would reduce in India. Hoping that what all things in global scenario could be utilized to ensure the gold prices are controlled, because the gold is not fluctuating just because of the domestic reasons in India. So the first, global organizations like WTO or IMF could collaborate with their efforts, because as we spoke about the supply chain disruptions, WTO should be taking care of the trade phenomena that could impact the gold prices. And the second one is IMF, who could ensure timely support monetarily to maintain their forex reserves, which would reduce the demand for what we call as official forex reserves procured in gold. Along with this, to ensure the domestic consumption subdued, the gold monetization scheme could leverage the same gold in the raw form to be utilized for ornaments and other domestic consumption, which could be redeemed to the original user whenever required. So the liquidity of gold without importing in physical form could be ensured if gold monetization scheme is provided with an additional factor of letting banks and other importers to utilize. So this sounds to be a different topic today, though the prices of gold rising has been in news. We analyzed it in a different format, understanding the factors that are impacting and what measures were taken by the government, and along with that, what could be the measures that could be taken in another scenario if we encounter the similar commodity super cycle. So just to summarize, the first one, we understood why prices are rising due to three factors: one domestic, other one is due to asset class, and third being forex reserves. Yeah. And we tried to understand three scenarios of pandemic and two wars, how these global scenarios were impacting the prices. Then came this situation of what measures were along with that. The third one was the increase in consumption of industrial use, semiconductor industry and other conductor. Then we went on to look at what was the scenario and what were governments doing. What were the measures taken by the government to reduce or at least contain abrupt increase in prices? Of course, they were aimed at reducing the import bill, and additionally, we were looking at measures that could be taken by the global organizations like WTO and IMF. So, I would like to conclude this video here on this note. You're welcome to comment about your doubts, and another day I will be ready with another analytical video based on the current affairs to understand the static reasons and the principles of economics. Till then, bye.